You are listening to the New American Media.
Live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles, to be quite specific with all of y'all. Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to the Unhappy Hour here on TNAM Radio, part of the newamericanmedia.com. Welcome, everybody. I am going to be your host today. My name is Brian Engelman, and I thank you for joining us. I now encourage you and invite you to join us on Twitter at American_media_. I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, getting close to 100,000 video views, youtube.com/The New American Media. Check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com, and search The New American Media on Facebook and like our page. We're going to be talking sports first. We're going to bring in NBA scout Zak Baris. We're going to talk about the Spurs taking a 1-0 lead over the Miami Heat. Yeah, I'm kind of happy about that. I'm a Cleveland sports fan. Indians, Cavs, Browns, and Buckeyes. So kind of happy about what the Spurs are doing. I'm not really a big fan of watching LeBron succeed in other people's laundry. What can I say? I'm a petty sports fan, but that's why we root. That's why we care. That's why we do that thing. And then coming up, we're going to talk with Ben Weinbrower. He's both of our guests originally from the greater Cleveland area. Zach is out here in Los Angeles as an NBA scout, and Ben Weinbrower, he has a radio show called Existential Radio out of Chicago. And we're going to talk about Chris Perez, and we're going to talk about weed, because he got busted FedExing weed. Mitch Hedberg had a joke about that. I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to have to play that. I'm going to have to play the Mitch Hedberg joke about the FedEx guy. That's a pretty funny one. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Indians. We're going to talk about that. And then I think we're going to transition with Ben. We're going to talk a little bit about the NSA, the spy tactics of the Obama administration, really continuing what George W. Bush overreached on with his illegal Patriot Act. And just really kind of hitting the reset button here, calling to question the fact that we have a Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure, and we're not really happy about being spied on with our emails, with our phone calls, with our text messages. It's creepy. It feels like someone's lurking outside of the window, and I don't like it. And these are the people we pay to represent us, not to spy on us. It's garbage. So we're going to talk with Ben about two separate issues. That's the second show we do called Agree to Disagree. And we're also going to bring in radio host Blake, the eccentric Wally. He's out of Vegas. He and I tend to co-host on his radio show, Eccentric Perspective. And we're going to definitely dig into the NSA and a couple of other news stories as well. So I guess, let's just jump right into the NBA stuff. Zach is a regular on this program, especially in NBA time, and let's just get him on right now to see what he's thinking after watching Game 1 of the Finals last night. It was pretty fun to watch, gotta say. It was pretty fun.
Hello?
Zach, you're live on the air. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Well, I'm better now that the Spurs are up 1-0. I mean, by the way, everybody, if you want to check out Zach on Twitter, he's at ZBaris. That's ZBaris. Follow him over there, because you're always sending stuff out NBA related, and of course the random thought as well. But what are your random thoughts after watching the Spurs take apart the Heat last night on the Heat's home court?
I mean, honestly, I wasn't too surprised. The Heat are on a couple-day rest. The Spurs, if the Spurs would have gotten blown away last night, people would have been coming out saying, "Oh, you know what? It was they're rusty." But San Antonio didn't look that great last night until the fourth quarter. They had multiple opportunities to take the lead all game. They couldn't capitalize on it until the fourth. I don't remember. The Heat had the lead all the way up until the final quarter.
Yeah.
And it was basically like every time San Antonio was shooting the ball, you're like, okay, they're bound to make this three. They missed it. I mean, Kawhi Leonard was missing threes. Matt Bonner was missing them. And it's like they couldn't take advantage of it. And San Antonio is a fantastic team. They're a much better team than Indiana. If Indiana actually had a decent point guard and didn't turn the ball over 25 times a game, they would have beaten Miami in that series.
Yeah.
But San Antonio, I believe, only turned over the ball though 4 times last night, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 of those were in the first couple minutes of the first quarter. And when you have an elite point guard like Tony Parker like that, it makes a big, big difference. The Heat had to switch LeBron over to him, midway through the game because he was just dominating offensively. He was doing everything right. He makes great passes. San Antonio was playing the pick and roll well. They were setting up great screens. And San Antonio's offense took advantage of that last night. And I want to start off with talking about LeBron though, because LeBron James last night, he had a triple double. He had a fantastic game. But in my opinion, I was wondering at some point in the game, I go, why isn't this guy taking a shot?
Yeah,
you know,
I thought the same thing.
He's sitting there constantly passing off to teammates. You know, and I'm asking myself, I go, yeah, it looks great on paper. Yes, he had 18 boards, but only 18 points to show for. In order for Miami to win this series, he needs to constantly put up 30 points a game. They just don't have it. Dwayne Wade is no longer a superstar. He's more on the lines of a very good player now when he's healthy, but he just doesn't really possess the superstar qualities anymore because of his lingering knee injury. He's not that type of player anymore. That doesn't mean he can't be effective though, when used properly, but he's obviously has the knee issue, and Bosh wasn't making his shots. He was taking, and it wasn't just a typical off night for Chris Bosh. He was taking low percentage shots. Chris Bosh is a mid-range jump shooter. Instead last night you have him taking 18-foot jumpers, and you constantly have him shooting from beyond the arc and deep three-point shots, which, during the season he's only a 28.9% shooter. He's not a 50% or 40 or even 35% three-point shooter. So that's a really ineffective shot for Chris Bosh to be taking at that stage of the game in the fourth quarter. I believe he missed 4 threes last night without making one. So, Miami seriously needs to change up their game plan, because if they lose game 2, they're going to lose this thing in 4 or 5. Now, I don't think Miami will. I tend to see the series going 6 or 7 games. I originally predicted Spurs in 7. Is what I thought the other day to myself. I said this. I think the Spurs are taking it in 7. I said nobody could beat the Heat last year other than the San Antonio Spurs. And this year, I didn't honestly think San Antonio would get to the finals, but I'm sticking with it again this year.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily see it a few months ago, Oklahoma City was looking pretty sharp. You had a few different teams.
And the whole Westbrook thing, but I'm not happy Russell Westbrook got injured. But at the same time, I didn't want to see, like I said, I talked at the beginning of the year, I said, even with a healthy Russell Westbrook, I still didn't think Oklahoma City could beat Miami. I said, I talked about it, and I pressed this hard at the beginning of the season when I said, you have such a small window for a championship in the NBA. Don't go around training your star player. If you have to get in the luxury tax for a couple years, go ahead and do it. It's worth the ring. Otherwise, you're always going to be a consistently decent team, but without that star power, and you're never going to be able to build a dynasty. And that's the problem. The Thunder got such little value in return for James Harden, who is now a borderline superstar. He's definitely an all-star. If you want to call him a superstar, he's along those lines now. And if the Rockets acquired Dwight Howard, Sam Presti officially shifted powers of the Western Conference over from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Houston Rockets single-handedly. Because I can tell you, Dwight Howard would not go to the Rockets without James Harden being there. But getting back to the finals talk, I feel that San Antonio definitely has an advantage. I said in order for San Antonio to win the series, they needed to at least take one of two from, they at least need to take one of two from Miami in Miami. It's like last year I said in order for Oklahoma City to win last year, they needed to take both home games heading into Miami for 3 straight, because you knew Miami was going to win those 3 straight in Miami. So when Miami took game 2 last year in the series, you knew it was pretty much over, and then it went to 3-1, and then it was all of a sudden, close out game 5. You knew Miami wasn't going to lose on their home court. And that's the same thing that has to happen this year with Miami. Miami desperately needs to win game 2, which I think they will. But if they don't, I can tell you the Spurs will close this out in 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think there's an enormous amount of pressure on Miami right now, having already dropped that. That's a game plan. If you can just split that, they could in theory get swept on their home court. There's got to be a lot of pressure there right now.
I mean, last night I definitely looked and I said, with the way this team played in Game 7, they're going to come out strong. I fully expect them to win Game 1. I fully expect them to win last night, and they just didn't do it. I honestly, I was very surprised. It's not like he predicted them to go down last night, but, the way they lost, though, with LeBron not shooting, it reminded me of 2 years ago in the Dallas series when he became so passive. You just didn't hear, obviously you were hearing his name defensively. He was making incredible passes last night. And the guys should hit open shots. But it's at the same point where if LeBron wants to win, he has to be the guy. He has to be putting up over 30, and he has to do what he did in Cleveland. If it requires a 40-point scoring night, so be it. That's what you have to do to win.
So do you think, put yourself in his brain for a second then. Do you think he's revisiting his time in Cleveland? Where he felt like it seems like he was getting annoyed that he had to be the Jordan superstar, and he's just like, I need better people around me so I don't have to put the weight on my shoulders. Well, when you're in the MVP, that's what you have to do in the NBA. You have to get your 30, your 35, your 40.
I think he must realize that he has to do it now, and for anybody, there's a lot of people in Los Angeles that are from Miami. And whenever I talk to them, they're so delusional going, oh, there's no way he's going to leave. He's going to leave the Heat in a year. And I'm talking to them, I go, I'm not necessarily, I tell them, I'm not necessarily saying he's going back to Cleveland. That's just my opinion. But honestly, I go, what's his deal in Miami? Is he going to stay there because Chris Bosh is definitely going to opt out after next season? Wade will most likely opt in, but it's still a roster. Even if Wade opts in, they're still strapped for cap. They don't have many draft picks. They're not going to be able to go out and sign many players. And if you lose Bosh, you're not going to be better without him than with a 33-year-old Dwayne Wade. I can tell you that right now. So I honestly believe LeBron will opt out. Like I said, I'm not guaranteeing he comes to Cleveland. I think he will. That's my opinion. But, looking back on it, LeBron may have had the perfect opportunity to win in Chicago, to go and play with, Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade in Chicago, entertain that idea with having a front court of Taj Gibson and Joakim Noah if they could make the financials work out. That would have been an incredible team. Obviously, Luol Deng would have had to been traded, but, that team, I don't think he would have had to do too much work.
Well, the Heat, I mean, how many minutes was Norris Cole playing? He was a second-round draft pick.
The thing is, though, with Miami is Miami's supporting cast is decent. He should not have to do all this work. I mean, if you look at Game 7, these guys play up to their ability. They crushed the Pacers in Game 7. Birdman was on his game. Bosh was on. Wade was on. Even Mike Miller was draining shots, making his $5 million a year that he doesn't really deserve. All these guys, Norris Cole was getting to the rim. They were forcing turnovers. They played a fantastic Game 7. And you look at the team, they're a completely different team. They look like they did for most of the Indiana series in every loss. It's Miami's a complete Jekyll and Hyde act. You don't know what you're going to get from them. You know what you're going to get out of LeBron. He's been fantastic all playoffs. But you don't know what you're getting from Wade. You don't know what you're getting from Bosh. You don't know what you're getting from Chalmers. These guys just weren't hitting open shots last night. And you have to give San Antonio credit. They played a great game, and Popovich is, like I've always said, is the best coach in the NBA. I've said that now for a while.
You have.
He's done so much with the same roster, very little turnaround, and they keep adding small pieces. They had a guy like Kawhi Leonard last year. They had a guy, Danny Green, 2 years ago. They make small moves to complement their big three, and Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. But it's really not even a big three scenario in San Antonio. They're more of a team because Duncan's not putting up 28, 30 points a game anymore. Parker's still his dominant self. You could say Tony Parker's been playing better than ever.
Yeah.
Ginobili's had injuries over the past few years. So you can't go and, and berate the Spurs and say, like, oh, they've had so many injuries, or, you can't go and say the Heat, oh, well, they'd be winning if, Dwayne Wade was healthy. Well, Dwayne Wade is never healthy. It's just something you have to learn to live with. Dwayne Wade's never going to play an 82-game season, and he's never going to, he has chronic knee issues. It happens at this point. His body's taken a lot of hits. He forces himself on other people, and he draws a lot of fouls. That's his game. That's how he scores so many points. Basically, he goes in and causes a lot of blocking fouls. That's just Dwayne's game. But, LeBron, don't forget LeBron and Wade have similar games, but Wade takes way more of a pounding than LeBron. Plus, LeBron has a bigger frame. LeBron weighs more, and he's also taller. So, he's more muscular. He's a totally different game than Dwayne Wade nowadays. So, I look at it and I say, for Miami, in order to win this series, they have to make defensive adjustments. They have to guard the perimeter better because I can guarantee San Antonio is not going to shoot that poorly again from the perimeter. Miami might. San Antonio will not, though. Kawhi Leonard missed, the only guy draining his threes last night was Neal. I don't recall Bonner having any big threes, and I don't recall Kawhi Leonard making any big threes last night. And they have to be able to contain Tony Parker. You're going to basically have to put the switch on early in the game for LeBron to guard Parker almost the entire game, which will wear out LeBron offensively. And that may be why he only had 18 points last night. Maybe he realized he couldn't put up 35 guarding Tony Parker. It was just too much. It was too much of a defensive assignment, even though he did a decent job on him.
Talk about that move that I thought was just, certain moves I think of like all-time classic NBA moves. Hey, let me ask you that. When I say all-time classic NBA Finals or NBA playoff moves, when I say, like, give me a highlight, like, when I say that, what do you see in your mind's eye?
If I have to pick one highlight from last night, it's the last second of that game when Tony, the last few seconds when Tony Parker hits a shot with the shot clock, basically out of time and the turnaround, honestly, I mean, he just threw that up.
That was insane.
An incredibly lucky shot. But I mean, it was a hell of a job by Parker to recover and then be able to even get a shot off. Now, granted, even if he missed it, they're still up 2 against the Heat. It's not like it's a tie game where the Heat have the lead.
Right.
They're still up. But I mean, it was just a dagger, and it was an unbelievable shot. It's one of those moments where you're going to look back, especially if this series goes, 6 or 7 games, or even if it goes 5. You're still going to look back on it and say, Tony Parker's shot was the key to this series.
The one that I think of. The one that I think of was that spin move on Norris Cole. That was when they were battling back. And just he played Norris Cole like the rookie that he is. I think I could be seeing that slow motion spin move. He got so much distance and separation on that spin. I was equally impressed with that as that last second shot that Parker had as well. But let me expand the question back out to in NBA playoff history when I talk about like quintessential classic shots. Like, what do you see in your mind's eye? Not this series.
But I'm always picturing Michael Jordan's shot against the against the Utah Jazz. That's one shot that'll always go down in my mind. I believe that was Game 6. I feel like everything comes back down to Jordan. I'll never forget a couple of years ago, in the Celtics-Lakers series, in both of those ones, there were some great moments at the end by Kobe Bryant, Paul Pierce. There's things you're never going to forget. And this is one of those shots where I paid a lot of attention to. A few years ago, though, I had problems watching the finals, and the Cavs would get eliminated. Yeah. It would take so much out of me. Like, I watched barely any of the Orlando Lakers series because I was so depressed when the Cavaliers lost. Uh-huh. I just remember sitting there. I almost broke my hand watching that game, watching Game 6. I had to, finally, when they were down by 15 in the fourth, I finally just went and turned it off, and I said, I'm going to go barbecue with my friends. I can't handle this.
Were you out in Los Angeles at that point, or were you still back?
I was in Arizona at that point.
Oh, okay.
I was still at school.
Gotcha.
So I graduated in 2010. And I still look at it, and it's very hard for me to go back, though, especially when I was, I was very, very emotional at the time, and I've learned sports as a business now because I've been involved in it even since I was 18, but I was still a diehard Cavs, Indians, and Browns. Now I still am a diehard Indians and Browns fan, and I still do hope the Cavs, I still hope they do well, obviously because I am a Cleveland fan. But looking back on it, though, I had problems watching games after the Cavs got eliminated because I was so depressed. I had so much animosity towards the Boston Celtics and just the fans of Boston because I hated the Red Sox so much too. It was very, very hard for me to watch those finals because I know in my mind that should have been Kobe and LeBron.
Yeah.
And I have to say it's unfortunate too at the same time that the Cavaliers lost that because there's a good chance, there's a 100% chance you will never see Kobe in his prime against LeBron in his prime in the NBA Finals because Kobe
that was the window. That was the window. That was the opportunity.
And that was the thing. Is it should have happened 2 years in a row, and the Cavaliers failed both times miserably to get there. They had the Orlando series where, Orlando was just they had an unbelievable series, and the Cavaliers had no one to stop Dwight Howard. And the next year, the Cavaliers obviously, with the whole issue when they lost to the Boston Celtics, that was just depressing.
I remember watching the Lakers in the finals, and I was just so disgusted. Same feeling here. I couldn't stand even watching it. Going, no, the Cavs are supposed to be here. This is horrible.
I was watching a couple games, but it was like I was turning it on in the fourth quarter. It was too hard. It was just too hard for me to watch. And I'm not going to sit here and make up I was still watching some of the games in the fourth quarter, most of them actually, but it was just too hard for me to tune in all four quarters like I do now. Like I'm obsessed with basketball nowadays, and I watch it night in, night out. I don't care what teams. Unless I just don't care to watch a game like Sacramento, Utah, or something. That has no interest in me. But I'll still watch it if it's the only thing on. But there's tons of great NBA Finals moments that I remember over the days. But I feel like almost everyone puts Michael Jordan in my mind. You even have to look last year with LeBron. LeBron had one of the best series. He had an unbelievable series last year. Even 2 years ago. I'll never forget Jason Terrier delivering the dagger, to Miami, and I was just so excited. I was thrilled at the time.
No.
Because that was 1 year after the decision. And that was before I was working with an NBA team. I was still just working, I was still working as a scout, scouting mostly high school players, in college and NBA during the summer. But, obviously my perspective has changed over the last year. But, there's so many great moments, and I hope this is a great series. I really do. I would love to see it. It's a shame that basketball has to end in a couple of weeks, in about 2 weeks.
It feels like it's been going nonstop for 5 years now, Zach. It feels like there has been no break for a long time with the Olympics and with the draft. It seems like you've been on so much this past year. Like there has been no break, no downtime at all.
Well, yeah, and I realize that normally I had a lot of downtime. Like last summer, I thought I was going to have a ton of downtime, because I wasn't even supposed to start till October. Well, I wound up doing the USA basketball stuff. Last year in Las Vegas, I was there for a couple weeks. And it's just been a constant grind. I love it. And I realize, I realize my job ends for, I get a 2-week break after the NBA draft before the summer league starts, before I have to go to Las Vegas. And then I have all of August and September off. So, I'm still looking at that, and that's where my off season starts. But, getting back to it, I still want this to be a great final series. I don't want to see the Heat lose in 4. As happy as some people will be.
That would make me pretty happy. That would make me happy.
I mean, as happy as some people would be, I like watching basketball. I'd like to see us at least go 6 games. And I don't think the Heat will lose in 4. I'd be shocked if they do. It'd be an epic collapse. And I can tell you, I doubt it would be LeBron's fault. It'd have to be the supporting cast. And I can tell you right now, if they lose this year, it's the end of the Big Three's run. Pat Riley's going to have to break it up and move pieces. Whether it's moving Wade or moving Bosh, he's going to have to do it. He has to at least make an attempt for LeBron to re-sign. He has to make an attempt. And if he can bring in reputable players who can fill in a championship team with young talent next year, then maybe you get your chance for LeBron to stay. But otherwise, it's going to be extremely tough if you keep Wade and Bosh intact. Now if you win this year, it becomes a whole different story. You go for your 3rd title run in a row next year if you win this year. And if you win next year, okay, then it's over with, and let LeBron move on, get back under the cap and reload for the future again. Miami's a desirable market. The weather's great. I don't understand what the allure is about Miami. I go to Miami every year, and it's one of those cities that's fun to party in, but I could never live there.
Why wouldn't you ever want to live there? It's just weird, or what?
I just don't like it. It's one of those cities that's a great vacation place, but I feel like I'm in a foreign country.
Well,
Miami's dirty. It's dirty. Like most of it's dirty. South Beach is very touristy. Very few people live on South Beach. I like downtown Miami. I love Brickell, but, there's not that much to do there. And even there's some great beach houses, but there's other cities I'd much rather live in.
So you're saying Cleveland, is Cleveland way more awesome than Miami?
No, it's not at all. But at the same time, when it all comes down to it, you have to look at, and it's not usually the players. The players could usually care less where they play. And I've talked to many players. A lot of them don't care where they play because they're so busy during the season, with practice. A lot of them don't even drink during the season. They'll still go out. But a lot of them don't drink during the season. They don't do much during the season. It's straight practice and games. These guys work their butts off during the season. And it's the off season where they go out and party, and that's where they have their good time. But it's mostly their wives and their girlfriends and stuff are the ones that want them in the big market, so they have stuff to do. That's what makes the big difference. It's not usually the players and stuff. It's their wives or their girlfriends are usually dictating, where they want to go. Trust me, it has a big say in it. With Carmelo Anthony in Denver, his fiance at the time, Lala Vazquez, she's from New York. She had a reality show. She wanted to be in New York, and you can't blame her for that. So I think it put a little pressure on Carmelo of wanting to go to New York too.
Interesting. Well, that is very interesting. For me, the main thing I'm paying attention to is Kyrie and just making sure that he wants to re-sign, and we'll see how that all plays out. We'll see how.
I don't even think that's one thing Cleveland fans have to worry about. The Cavs have him under control for at least another 5 years. And I'm sure he'll wind up signing a max deal anyways with them. So I don't really think they have to worry. They're going to have him for a minimum of 7 years. And if they can put a decent supporting cast around him and a championship team, I think he's one of those kids that'll stay.
Well,
he's pretty loyal.
We'll see about that. We've seen the loyal thing before, but how much do you think the Heat should be worried at this point? No big deal. They've been there before, or should they be concerned?
I think they've been there before. They've been down. They're down 1-0 to the Bulls, but you knew it was too hard for the Bulls to sustain success in the series just because they were so beat up.
Yeah.
It was just too tough. Now, if the Bulls had a healthy roster, totally different scenario, but it wasn't. I believe they were also down 1-0 to the. Were they down 1-0 to the Pacers?
Oh man, you're.
I think they were.
But they're resilient. They've.
Well, it doesn't matter. It was still 1-1. Now if they get down 0-2, heading to San Antonio for 3 games, I would be extremely nervous. But I expect the Heat to come out there and win game 2. I fully. Like I said, a couple of years ago when we were discussing the Dallas series, I said that in order for Dallas to win the series, they needed to take 1 out of 2 at home. They needed to take 1 out of 2 in Miami on the road. They needed to at least win 2 out of 3 at home. They need to head back to Miami up 3-2. And I say the same thing about San Antonio for them to win. If San Antonio comes back home to San Antonio 1-1, they're in good shape.
Yeah.
And if they can take 2 out of 3 for Miami and San Antonio, they'll be up 3-2. You need to win 1 out of the next 2.
Yeah, game one, Pacers Heat. That was that last second. LeBron James, 103-102.
So Miami did win that one.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I mean, it was still 1-1 in that series, But the 2-3-2 is a lot harder to win for the home team in that 7-game series for the higher seed. It makes it because having to go on the road for 3 games, especially, you're expecting to lose at least 2 out of 3 when you go on the road. It just happens.
Do you like the format? Do you like that 2-3-2?
I like the 2-2, 1-1-1, but it's too hard. I mean, especially if it would have been Miami, Los Angeles, or New York, LA. That's where the problems come in. It's too hard to go from all the way to New York to LA, in 1-1-1. It just makes it too difficult. That's why they have the 2-3-2 format.
Well,
For the finals, because it's too hard for the Eastern to go to the Western Conference. It's just, although Miami to San Antonio is probably only a 3-hour flight, because I know Houston to Miami is only about 3 hours.
yeah, I mean they're flying first class chartered flights. I mean it's not like they're on a prop jet.
But still, but they're also thinking about the time change. This is set at the beginning of the year. This isn't set in mind going, okay, well Miami's only a 2.5-hour plane ride from San Antonio. They're not thinking that. This is all determined at the beginning of the year. You have to assume that a team like you have to assume that it could be Miami, LA, or New York, LA is going to be in it. So it's a lot tougher, especially when you have the 3-hour time change for people to adjust. Fortunately, Texas only has a 1-hour time change.
Okay.
That has to come into play here, and that's what people need to think about. So that's why they have the 2-3-2 format like they do.
Well, look, I was just going to say I could care less what format it is as long as the Spurs demolish the Heat. I don't necessarily care what day they're playing or what time or where it's at.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I think it can get very interesting over the next, especially if the Heat lose, I think things will get very, very interesting this offseason. Obviously, you're not going to see Pat Riley trade LeBron, but he's going to explore trading Bosh and I believe maybe even Dwayne Wade. He has to at that point because, LeBron is your franchise player now, not Dwayne Wade. LeBron is not Robin. He's your Batman.
Right.
Despite what people might say. A couple of years ago that was different when they lost to Dallas, but last year he showed, and this year he showed he's the best player in the NBA. It's not even close. No one was on his level. And you have to do what you can. You have to make an attempt to keep your superstar. The Cavs got in horrible cap trouble because they attempted to do that with Shaq, bringing Antoine Jameson mid-season, and they still had 2 more years of Jameson left, which turned out to be terrible. So, that's what these are all the factors that come into play. So I kind of hope, the San Antonio Spurs win just for the storyline. It would make an incredible story because after the Heat won last year and after winning 27 in a row this year in 43 out of 46 games, that they would actually lose. I mean, the Heat have lost 4 or 7 of their last, they've lost the last 4 or 7 games they played, which has been surprising in its own, in its own right. So there's a lot of factors that are going to go into this, and I definitely think it will be the most fun and entertaining offseason this year if Miami does lose, just because of all the trade possibilities that might happen.
Well, let me ask you this, and then we got to run. What's your quick prediction for Game 2?
I expect Miami to win. I expect them to come out basically with a vengeance and win Game 2. Doesn't mean they'll win the series, but I can't imagine Miami going down 2-0 in the series.
I'm going to pick Spurs. I'm going to pick Spurs up 2-0.
I mean,
that's my
like
pick.
I said, I will be very, very surprised if Miami doesn't come out there and win Game 2.
Well,
I'm not.
They're playing at home, so they have a good chance for sure.
They're down 1-0 and they're at home. I have a feeling if LeBron has to go for 40 points in that game, he's going to do it because he realizes I think he's got to put the bulk on his shoulders because his supporting cast did not get the job done last night. He made some incredible passes, some open shots. But like I said earlier, you had Bosh taking really inefficient field goals. He wasn't getting to the rim, and they just didn't put it together last night. The supporting cast didn't get it done. LeBron did, but I think in order for them to win, LeBron needs to be putting up a consistent 30 points on a nightly basis for them to win this series.
I cannot argue with that point, and I'll tell you what, we were talking about quintessential moments. When I close my eyes and think of like an NBA, like just a classic play, I see Jordan's up with the right hand, slow motion against the Lakers, bringing it back down, switching to the left in mid-flight. Like that's like the one slow motion play that automatically jumps to my mind. But once again, we're back to Jordan. It comes down to it. And Tony Parker had 2 of those moments last night. The damn near ankle-breaking spin move on Norris Cole and then that ridiculous circus shot with time running down in the 4th. So, they're stepping up, and you still have Tim Duncan and Popovich there. And, I mean, they're a formidable opponent. I'm really looking forward to it. I obviously hope the Spurs win, but we'll see how it plays out, Zach. So I'll tell you what, maybe we'll talk next week about a Spurs sweep. What do you say?
All right, sounds good. Thanks again for having me on.
All right, Zach, you be safe. I'll talk with you in a few, buddy. That is Zak Baris, Check him out. He's on Twitter at Zbaris. That's ZBARIS. Let me do this. We're going to take a quick commercial break here on the TNAM Radio Network. For the Unhappy Hour, we're going to come back on the other side. We're going to talk with Ben Weinbrower. We're going to talk some Tribe. Really got to hear this Chris Perez story, and I think we're going to make a little hard pivot into agree to disagree. We're going to talk a little bit of politics with the spy tactics of the NSA and the Obama administration, basically continuing the garbage that the Bush administration has been doing illegally since the Patriot Act. No, it's legal. No, it's clearly violating the Fourth Amendment. Just because they passed it doesn't mean it's legal. It just means they're doing it currently until we tell them we don't like being spied on. So we're going to do kind of like a split segment with Ben coming up. First, it's going to be Cleveland Indians. Chris Perez getting busted with weed, having the FedEx guy deliver it. Pretty funny stuff, pretty crazy stuff. And then we're going to switch to some politics. My name's Brian Engelman. Do us a favor. Sign up for all of the places where you can find the New American Media. Check out the homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Follow us on Twitter at American_media_. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The New American Media, and search The New American Media on Facebook. We'll be right back in just a second. We're going to talk some Tribe.
You are listening to the New American Media.